Welcome to our coverage of the Paris Olympic Games. Japan are the Olympic champions. I have a major update on what happened with the French women's team yesterday, so I will tell you all about it. It's men's team finals. It's July 29th, and we're coming to you live from Paris. Welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation. Welcome to all of our new listeners from around the world. We will try to tell you full and elaborate backstories so that you understand all the context from whence we discuss. From whence? No, that's incorrect. It's been a long day. If you are a Club Gym Nerd member, remember to switch to your members only feed instructions in the show notes so you can listen to the full episode with the bonus content. Remember, we have a live show coming up this Friday, August 2nd at 9 p.m. Paris time, noon Pacific time. We're going to talk about the Olympics with some special guests. A portion of the proceeds will benefit the Cats of Ukraine and Henrietta Onodi's medical fund. Henrietta Onodi as in the Onodi. Tickets on sale now at GymCastic.com. Spencer, tell us what happened.
Japan won the Olympic team title. As it pains me to say, Jessica picked yesterday, and I picked China, and through 5 rotations, I was like, I nailed this. Who would ever have picked Japan? Jessica, not paying attention as usual to any of the scores. China's winning by 3 points, going to the last rotation on high bar, and then it all goes to pieces again, just like last year at Worlds, and Japan wins the Olympic team title. First. So Japan won in Rio, so then the Russian team won in Tokyo, now Japan again. So now it's been 3 straight Olympics that China hasn't won the team title, which they'll be thrilled about.
Yeah, no teams are ever more upset and angry than silver if it's China or Japan, and 4th place in general.
Yeah.
So China with the silver, US won a historic bronze medal.
The happiest bronze in the world
there's ever been. The British.
Paul Judah just started breakdancing. I don't know if he knew what was happening. It was just the song in his heart, and he couldn't keep it in. It was great.
On the podium, like all pomp and circumstance was obliterated by how just ecstatic the men's US team were. They were jumping up and down. They didn't follow the correct way out. They got off the podium and started fencing with I think they got their tokes. The thing, it's the thing that you bang on the floor with if you're in the theater in France. I think that's what it is. I'm not sure though. They were so everyone was just China was just standing there oh my God, these people are so happy, and we have to go talk to Chinese media now, which I have a lot of stories to tell you about. By the way,
get interrogated about our silver again.
Yeah, GB came in 4th. Then Italy, Switzerland, and Canada. And Canada, this is historic. The men's and women's team both qualified to team final.
You ignored Ukraine.
Oh my God, Ukraine!
Ukraine was in there in 5th.
Ukraine after the British.
Yeah.
Ukraine also, they were doing so well. I was like, come on. Yeah.
I know what happened. Jessica put in her notes GB and then UK for Ukraine, and you thought GB and then you saw United Kingdom. You were like, I already said that, and then you went on. I understand. I know exactly what happened. I saw it in real time.
So speaking of what happens with my brain, we have a correction. Sadavos from Germany messaged me today, and she said it's Lyme borreliose, not Lyme babiosis that she has. So there's many kinds of Lyme. There's 20, I know, there's 28 kinds of Lyme infections, the family of Lyme. So anyway, that is the correction. So thank you to her for correcting that. But now you know why sometimes I write the wrong thing down. Let's talk about Japan, because as I predicted, they're going to win because
it was never in doubt.
Kaya Kazuma was already screaming. He started screaming and screaming after his first routine. He started off the meet screaming, and I was like, that's it. Japan wins again.
I was legitimately worried for his health when the scores came up and they won gold. I was like, I don't know if he's okay. He's too excited. I'm a little bit worried.
He fully Arthur Nori'd when they won, rolling around on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They started off the meet 1 point better than they did in prelims.
Mm-hmm. Both Japan and China improved by a point on floor, so it was kind of still neck and neck. And then we had the first break, the first real something has happened moment of the men's team final in the second rotation when Hashimoto fell on pommel horse.
I was like, oh my God. And it also, like, he's been dealing with a finger injury. I think his finger was dislocated, and he keeps saying it's not hurting. But, like, fingers are the enemy of pommel horse. Pommel horse has taken many fingers and bent them sideways and backwards. So I was like, oh no. And then I thought Takanaga fell or touched his knee on vault. I'm still not sure.
It was I saw it as a really deep landing close to knee touch. So this is Tanagawa Wataru, best vaulter on the Japanese team, going for a piked Dragulescu. Landed it very short, knee close to touching, or maybe touched, lunge forward, and also did not get piked credit, which was significant. He got tucked credit. They inquired. I think it was the inquiry was rejected. I think it was the right. I think it was the correct decision there. But that was another score question that kind of vault is when things started to shift-ish. China still had an advantage, but then Suede fell on his cause 1.5 in the vault rotation for China and got a 12.766, which sort of opened the door for Japan. But then Tanagawa didn't get his vault score, so it was still kind of like, okay, China had their first error, but they're still way ahead until the last rotation. Halfway through the meet, China had gained 2 points on Japan versus their qualification scores on those events when China beat Japan by 2.5 points. So they had increased their pace by 2 additional points versus what they won by in qualification. And they were cruising. You were like, there were no issues. They barely have to hit the rest of their routines. They had a 3-point lead. It was a whole thing. Emily put up a comment about Chiles Jones and her injury. We'll get there. We'll talk about the women.
Yep. We have a whole women's preview section. We need to talk about the updates about women, the lineups, all of it. Okay. Anything else? I do want to talk about I want to talk about my favorite person from the Chinese team, Liu Yang. Their smiley ring specialist who he's the head nod guy you remember from Tokyo, and every time he competes on rings, he is like,
I'm good at this.
You're welcome, everybody. I did not fall. I did my job. He is like the most affectionate member of that team. Like, he's always like the loveliest, happiest. He's always wants to hug everybody. And like, he's so happy. And the rest of his team is always Spencering him. They're always like, oh, dude, can you stop with the feelings already?
This must be why I like the Chinese team, because they have a correct reaction to all this affection. So it was going great for China. Everything was fine. You also, I know you talked about enjoying Hashimoto calling for respect in the crowd to calm down before Chinese competitors, sportsmanship, etc.
The best thing. So Daiki, before he went up on bars, high bar, there's only one high bar. He was like, it was
there
so
are 2
tense.
Parallel bars. You could have been talking about parallel bars.
That's true. The Japanese team was already like, had their arms around each other. They were like telling each other, like, calm down, calm down, calm down. Okay, Daiki's got to go. They're all like so ready. So he was like crouched over by the mat. He had his head down, his hands down, almost like, Simone just like sits there like she could care less about gymnastics before she does her big leg events like floor and vault. That's kind of what he was doing, but more squatting, like semi-praying. And then he gets up, he hits. His team goes nuts. The crowd goes nuts. Everyone is going crazy. And then he like gestures almost right away to the crowd, like, okay, quiet. Let's have respect for the next competitor. And then goes up to Xiao and like hugs him, and then like quietly goes down onto the floor where his, team then like, completely freaked out on him. The class, the sportsmanship was so Olympics, because Olympics are actually about peace. Sometimes we forget that. But it is what it's actually about. And that was like a really beautiful moment. And I loved it so much.
So what then happens for China on high bar, 3-point lead going into the last event. Xiao went up first for China, kind of missed his dismount, knee down. It was another situation where from our angle, I was like, knee down, almost knee down, close to knee down, got a low score, but then they did inquire, and he got 4/10 back after inquiry, which could have ended up being very significant. Then Suede, who was the replacement on the Chinese team for Sun Wei, who got injured in podium training. Su Wei-de comes in, an excellent high bar worker. He won the bronze on high bar in the event final at Worlds last year. He is excellent, but this is now the second straight year where he has gotten an 11 on high bar in the team final. So he had 2 falls in his routine, got an 11, and then it was Japan's to lose, I guess. It still was close. And we got to Jung Bo-hung, who anchored for China, who had to get over a 15 in order for China to win, but he is capable of doing that. It would have been, best possible routine, I think, ever for him to get the score he needed, but he was capable, and he put up a very good routine, but, lunge back on the dismount and a little wobble to control it. You felt like, okay, that was a good routine, but it was not the amazing, amazing, amazing score he needed to get in order to get China the gold medal, despite what had happened on high bar. So it ended up being Japan with the gold medal by a half point over China in second.
And man, there's never been a bigger juxtaposition between angry, disappointed, and super happy, joyous, overjoyed, ecstaticness. Then this is why I love that in finals they put it's head-to-head competition on the event. So it's like Japan and China are in the same rotation going back to back. Like, this is the greatest thing ever, because they literally can see, like, oh, so-and-so went, I have to hit now. You're
saying you prefer the alternating routines, which is a relatively new format for the team final, rather than the 3 from one country go and then the 3 from another country go, that you alternate back and forth.
Yes, exactly. I love it. It's so much drama. And then the teams that know they're not gonna medal, probably, there's so much there's a lot of camaraderie, but especially the teams are there's extra camaraderie, because they're we made it. It's great. We're here.
Italy looked very happy for the US. They were rotated together, and Italy was like, our brothers have won a bronze medal.
It was also perfect. I was like, it's Italy and the United States. Totally goes together. This is perfect. Shall we discuss the US?
We shall. The US men hit 18 for 18 in an Olympic team final, which is, I think, that's your miracle of the day.
They did it.
Yeah. No one was happier than Sam McCulloch, who was like, you guys, you hit 18 for 18.
I think the huge thing about their win is not just them as individuals.
The fact that you're calling it a win, which it is, of a bronze
their win,
medal, but
it
definitely feels like that's a competition win. They were never going to. I mean, maybe the victory is that they were only 2 points behind China, which is really close, a good margin for them. But it's a win. The goal was bronze. They were not legitimately envisioning beating China or Japan. The goal was bronze, and because Russia wasn't here, they were like, we got it. We did it. We hit 18 for 18. We did what we wanted.
As Coach Sykes Caesar said, he's one of the EVO coaches, was formerly the OTC, Olympic Training Center coach. He said, we won bronze. The China lost gold. And I was like, I mean,
it's not wrong.
It's not wrong. Yeah. I asked Brody specifically about it seems like you guys genuinely love each other. And he was like, yeah, we really, really do. And he talked about a conversation they had after qualifications where they and he was like, I can't share because there was a lot of really personal stuff in that conversation, but we really respect and care about each other. We all come from NCAA, and NCAA, it's easy to translate this. It has to be a team. We have to support each other. And they just really seem cohesive in a way. And I think it so stands out because there's definitely been men's US teams where people definitely for sure hated each other, and you can win. That hate is also a fuel, or anger is an energy, as Sex Pistols singer famously once said. But I think this team love and respect is what worked for them. And it's such a huge win, I think, also for Brett McClure, who is the men's high performance coordinator, because the team bought into his plan to we have to have a huge D. This is how we do it. And they pick the team automatically by biggest D, and that's difficulty score. And it worked.
They did not pick the team by biggest D. They picked the team by the results of nationals and trials and the highest scoring team. And I think that's what's
right.
borne out here. I think, well, what I want to say about, I think it's an interesting narrative that we've heard from the US men's team, which is, last time at the Olympics, we came in and we had this huge difficulty score deficit to Russia and China and Japan. And we were starting from a hole, and we've worked on improving that D score. This year, they also had a large difficulty deficit to China and Japan, and Russia was ineligible. And so it's kind of like, that was almost the same. What was this win of a bronze medal was earned on consistency in E-score to me, more than upping those D scores. And no one's more representative of that than Paul Judah, who did not go for high difficulty. He can do a more difficult vault. He has a lot more difficulty on high bar than he can do. And I think this result was actually counter to the narrative that we've heard from the US men's team about upping their difficulty, because that's not what won them the bronze medal here. And we look at Daniel did the D scores and E scores.
Yep.
Because the US was 5th in D score here, way behind China and Japan, but also behind Ukraine and Great Britain. And the US won the E score in the team final overall of all the teams. It was won on staying on the apparatuses and going clean. And then you have big D score routines like Fred Richard on high bar, Brody potentially on high bar. He downgraded his routine, and I think that was a smart move just to get him out with a good, useful hit. But they have difficult routines. Asher Hong's vault, he also hit. But I think it was like the win was born on like performances like Paul Judah's.
Yep. And I also asked them, and like Psych make that point exactly. And Catalina Panor says Paul Judah and Snoop Dogg are having the best Olympics out of anyone.
Yeah.
They are. Psych talked about the E score and that being consistent. And also I asked like what changed after podium training. He's like, what do you mean? Do you mean qualifications? I was like, no, I mean podium training, when there was a lot of, using your butt accidentally more often than staying on the apparatus. And he was like, the plan, we didn't have a plan to go in and like hit every single full routine. That was not their assignment that day. So they did what they were supposed to do. And then when they got to the floor, they were tired. Jessica, and he's like, is that why people think it wasn't a success?
Like, you were used to women's podium training where you do full routines. Men's podium training is like, we're not doing that.
And I was like, well, this is an important thing for me to tell people, that to frame it as you see it, that it was not a failure, it was an assignment. So that is what I will tell people. So this is what I'm telling you. I do want to get to, we have a major update on the French women's team, who yesterday, the French women's team had a total meltdown. They failed to qualify on any event. Like their Olympics ended yesterday. That's it. Melanie is in the all around, she's like the second reserve on all around, but I mean, there's still a very outside chance. But yeah, they went to the mix zone and they told the media that there was an incident in the training hall that led to the meltdown. I just want to tell you what I saw first from in the mix zone yesterday, because I didn't really talk about this because I didn't know what was happening. But when I went down to the mix zone, I first saw Marine Boyer there, and she just looked, I thought maybe she looked kind of like faint or dehydrated. I wasn't really sure. And she was just kind of standing there waiting for someone. And I was like, whatever. So I just noted it and did my thing and came back. And then she was being evaluated by medical, and they were examining her head and her neck. And she was, gesturing to them, and she still had her eyes closed. And I was like, oh no. And then before the French team came through, 2 other athletes in the same subdivision, not on the French team, when I asked them, how are you doing? Just how did it go? How do you feel? They both mentioned, I'm just glad to be healthy. I'm glad to have made it out of the sport healthy. Or one of them said that because this is her last competition. And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? Why are you bringing that up specifically? And then I asked, and I was like, well, let me turn this on. Is everything okay? Did something happen? And they didn't elaborate. And so I talked to our Parisian GymCastic
French correspondent. Yeah.
Yes, our Dr. Laura Capella, who's a French dance critic, and she also covers gymnastics for publications like the New York Times. She has a story coming out. And so she wrote for us the lowdown on what has happened since yesterday. So Spencer, will you read this?
Yeah, so this is the official word from the Federation today, that Marine Boyer fell on her back on uneven bars a few minutes before the competition. The medical evaluation that immediately followed allowed her to compete. She was examined at the end of the day after the competitions, and the results were reassuring. So this is from West France, a regional newspaper. Marine Boyer fell hard on bars 5 minutes before marching in, hit her head, and was a little dazed. The medical staff was tense and debated what to do until the last minute. In the end, no concussion protocol was done. They just decided to let her compete. The concussion protocol was done after the competition. The national technical director said it was, quote, a nightmarish competition, the worst scenario, and that the incident partly explains the kind of stupefaction and the absence, quote, the absence of the French gymnasts. Colleen Deviard said that their performance shouldn't be blamed on that incident, but their bodies felt disconnected during the competition. And they also felt terrible throughout for Melanie because they knew she had huge personal goals and was coming out of a difficult few years. That's from the Huffington Post. And Melanie on Eurosport said it was likely her last games, that she felt she had, quote, worked for nothing for the past 2 years, wanted to crawl into a hole, and had let down her team. It's so hard to read all of these quotes from Melanie. The interviewer kept pushing her to focus on something positive, and she was like, I can't see anything positive at all about today.
Yeah. So the part of this that I want to focus on is the role of alternates, how hard it is to use alternates, and the French Federation once again, because we saw this at 2021 Worlds when we were the only ones to get media to get a press credential to go to Worlds. Hedwig fell, hit her head on beam, got up right away, immediately then passed out, it looked like, on the mat right after she had just hit her head on beam. And then there didn't seem to be any, they didn't stabilize her neck. We didn't see anything, but I asked her in the mix zone, had we at that World Championships, like, what happened? She was like, oh, it was just my blood pressure. And I was like, okay, like, I'm sure get your blood pressure if it's your blood pressure, but people with blood pressure problems can't do gymnastics because you're literally going up and down, sitting, flipping the whole time. Like, I did not buy it, and I did not see them do a concussion protocol. And honestly, I don't think if it was that close to march out, I don't think that you can do a concussion protocol. You need at least like 10 to 15 minutes to actually do it. And it does, I believe, more knowing the history of the French Federation and how they've behaved, and the same coaches were there at 2021 Worlds. I believe the report of Quest France more than I believe the director of the Federation, the French Federation. And I think that this shook up many more gymnasts than just the French team. And I think that there needs to be a protocol where alternates can be in the gym warming up, ready to go in if someone gets hurt in the warm-up gym. Because if someone gets hurt in the warm-up gym, you don't have time to get an alternate in. You can't do it.
You're not allowed. Yeah.
You're not allowed, literally. So like, what's the point? You can only use alternates if someone gets hurt 24 hours before. And I know they're like, well, you have 5 people on a team, you can just use someone else. But this is what it leads to. An abuse of the system, and an abuse of the athletes because of the system, in my personal opinion. Because when you have a concussion, you can't make these kind of decisions for yourself. You have to have someone else evaluate you. And I do think that she was being evaluated after, and there have been reports that she was evaluated after, which is what I believe I saw in the mix zone. She was being evaluated by medical, and they were looking at her head and neck. That's too late. When you hit your head, you have to be evaluated then for a concussion, because you can literally die from second concussion syndrome. If you have a concussion, you hit your head again during the competition, which she could have, you can die. It's that serious. And I don't think that enough federations and coaches take this as seriously as they should. Do you think we'll ever get a situation where an alternate is actually able to be in the warm-up gym warming up like the reserves are for finals?
I think we're moving in that direction. And I think there's more awareness now. The Olympics and their accreditation and all of this is so strict, and it's so counterproductive to athletes being at their best. And I don't know. The other thing, and we were talking about this a little bit after we recorded yesterday, my other thing is that we're seeing so many athletes in the women's competition who are hanging on by a thread physically, but this is the Olympics, so I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do, I'm going to be an Olympian. I'm going to do one routine. And it's a beautiful moment. You've worked so long for this, and you want to be at the Olympics and at least do something and say, like, I competed at the Olympics, and it's lovely. But also, there are so many of the individuals are so injured here. And so many. And it's like, it is a point where I'm diverging from the question of alternate, I think, a little bit, but it is the point of some of it is making such a big deal about like, the Olympics being such a big deal to the point of we need to make it less of a big deal. Like just like so many people competing injured. So how many people do we see in qualification like physically holding their hearts? And I don't know if this is just something everyone's into right now, where I'm just gonna like hold my hand on my heart so that I like can relax or calm down. But I saw so many people just like having such an extreme reaction that I'm like, we need to just like calm down about the Olympics a little bit. I love the Olympics, but like it is not worth everything that everyone is going through. Just as a group is my feeling.
Yep. I worry. Okay. I want to tell you guys I want to talk about the women's lineups, do a little bit of a women's preview. The first thing that we have learned for the US lineups is no Hesley, as I predicted after prelims.
It's not what I predicted.
Yeah, you didn't. You disagreed with me, and I was like, nope, she's not going to compete again. That was it.
Based on the performances in qualification, these are the lineups that you would pick for the US. And if you're saying, qualification is the audition for the team final, this is obviously what you would do. I was surprised not to see Hesley on any events because of the precedent, the post-MARTA precedent of we want to make sure everyone's participating in the team final, and we want to make sure our team. This also opens up to criticism of the team selection, which I think, as we talked about, was justified based on the scores overall. The 5 they picked based on the trials process. I don't have a big issue with the selection, but now you're not even using Hesley Rivera in the team final. By the way, yes, absolutely not says this Jessica 2, Spencer 0. I have other points. I'm just not bringing them up. I've said things that are totally right also. By the way,
as long as they don't put her in the stands like they've done to other gymnasts and didn't even let them be on the floor, she'll be included. She'll be on the floor.
I'm sure she'll be on the floor. All of that. But yeah, basically what I'm saying is like if I'm Joss Robertson, I'm like, seriously right now, you pick Hesley for the team, you're not even going to use her, and you're putting Suni on floor in the team final, and I'm right here. And yes, you would not have foreseen like Jade getting sick and not being able to eat and not being able to do the floor. You picked her for floor, and you obviously would have based on trials. But I'm just saying, if I'm Joss, I'm like, what is happening right now?
Well, I mean, this brings us back to the alternate question. Like, if people are sick such that they cannot finish a floor routine or they're not able to, that also is like Jade's health is also at risk. They're not just the team medal, which who cares about that? I mean, obviously these people do, but I don't.
Obviously some people do or whatever.
These people are really competitive and care about the Olympics. I also worry that Hesley was just overworked because, she was doing so much in practice. Like she was doing triple from the one practice that I saw. But she was doing triple what everybody else was doing. And I was like, well, of course she wasn't at her best on the day that she competed because she was, in my personal opinion, from one day of training over training. But yeah.
And she did do a great bars, I will say, in qualification. I thought her bars was great. She had a wobbly beam, but it wasn't I don't think the characterization that she had some sort of some sort of disaster. It wasn't a disaster in qualification. She had a wobbly beam and she had a good bars. It was like it was kind of what happens.
Right. And I think we have to put this in perspective. She's basically like, if Shy, DiCello, Sky had all been healthy, she's like, the 10th all-arounder or whatever. So like, that you're probably not going to use your 10th all-arounder here. But she did, she will develop and be great in the future. And, she's had this experience and she did her job on the day. On bar, she did a really good job, but this doesn't really surprise me too much. Jade's only doing vault, Chiles and Biles and Chiles. Get your t-shirts all now. GymCastic.com merch store. Doing all around. Okay, I have some more stuff to tell you guys. I want to tell you about the Chinese commentator that I was sitting next to during the broadcast, oh my God, there were some celebrities in attendance today, and there were some accidental podium exits. And I want to tell you first how our own book coverage works. Spencer watches every detail at home, makes the GIFs, does the spreadsheets. I watch in the arena, interview the athletes' coaches after, and this is why I can tell you what the athletes say for themselves and not just speculate about it. And then I fly back here in the Metro. We get ready, we record afterwards. I edit the different versions to put out the public version. So the headlines, like our discussion just now, always available for everybody. So you get like a 20 or 30-minute podcast every single time we're doing a podcast daily here from the Olympics. And then we have some extra stuff for the club members because they're the ones that support us all year long, all quad long, which is what enables us to get an Olympic credential. So I want to thank them so much. Thank you all for being here. And they can ask us questions live and make comments live. So if you'd like to join, check it out at gymcastic.com, join the club tab. And if not, we'll see you back here tomorrow after women's team finals. So excited for tomorrow. Okay. See you guys then. All right. So I was sitting next to one of the Chinese commentators for TV.